In a quiet corner of the city, far from the bright lights and busy streets, lived a mechanic named Ronan. His garage was small and messy, filled with the smell of oil and the constant hum of machinery. People came to him because he was good at fixing things, not because he was friendly. Yet, there was something in him that others didn't notice. He had a soft heart, though he rarely showed it. Every night after closing his garage, Ronan walked through the empty streets carrying little bags of scraps and milk. The alley behind his shop was always full of stray cats. Some were tiny kittens with wide, curious eyes. Some were older cats with fur matted and torn from the harsh streets. None of them ran away from him. Instead, they gathered in small groups, meowing softly, waiting for the simple meal he brought. Ronan never spoke to them much. He didn't need to. The cats seemed to understand him. He tossed them pieces of bread and bits of leftover fish, and they purred, rubbing against his legs. It was the only quiet moment of peace he had in a world that rarely cared for anyone. But this night was different. Ronan noticed a small, silver-eyed cat he had never seen before. Its fur shimmered oddly in the dim light, almost as if it held tiny sparks of starlight. The cat didn't meow. It just stared at him, tilting its head curiously. Ronan crouched down and offered a scrap of fish. The cat sniffed it but didn't eat. Instead, it leapt silently onto the roof of a nearby building, watching him with those strange silver eyes. Ronan frowned. "Weird cat," he muttered. He shook his head and continued feeding the others, trying not to think too much about it. Yet a feeling of unease settled in his chest, a feeling he couldn't explain. The next night, the same silver-eyed cat returned, joined by two others. Together, they moved in a way that felt coordinated. They didn't act like ordinary stray cats. They watched him, but with a strange intelligence that made Ronan's skin prickle. He laughed nervously. "What is it with you guys? Are you planning something?" The weeks passed, and more unusual cats began appearing at the alley. One had unique markings or colors that seemed unnatural, almost magical. Ronan, busy with his work, didn't think much of it. After all, the city was full of odd creatures. Or so he told himself. One night, a storm broke out. Rain hammered the rooftops and wind tore through the alleys. Ronan stayed in his garage, listening to the storm and watching the water pour down the streets. He worried about the cats. Were they safe? Without thinking, he grabbed an umbrella and ran into the rain, calling for them. To his surprise, every single cat appeared. Not one was missing. The silver-eyed one led the way, jumping gracefully from puddle to puddle. They all followed him to a hidden corner behind the old warehouse. There, Ronan saw something he could never have imagined: a faint glow, shimmering like moonlight, emanating from the cat's fur. It was beautiful, almost otherworldly. Before he could take a step closer, the silver-eyed cat spoke. "Do not be afraid, Ronan." Its voice was soft, melodic, yet powerful, like a bell ringing in the distance. Ronan froze, his eyes wide. Cats didn't talk. He blinked, wondering if the storm had made him hallucinate. "We are not ordinary cats," the silver-eyed one continued. "We serve the goddess of shadows. We have watched you for many nights. You feed the weak, care for those who have no one, and never ask for anything in return." Ronan's mouth went dry. "Wah, what do you mean?" "Stammered. The cat's silver eyes glowed brighter. "You are a kind soul mechanic. That is rare in your world. The goddess has chosen you for a task that only a human can complete." Ronan shook his head, laughing nervously. "I fix cars. I feed cats. Hey, that's all I do. I'm no hero." "You are already a hero," the cat said, "but soon your courage and kindness will be tested in ways you cannot imagine." A bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating the cat's glowing forms. For a moment, Ronan saw not ordinary cats, but miniature guardians, their tiny forms radiating power and intelligence. His heart raced. The peaceful nights of feeding strays had ended. Something extraordinary was about to begin. He had no idea how deeply he had already been chosen. As the storm raged on, Ronan stood there, drenched, staring at the creatures that had been in his alley all this time. They had been watching him, learning from him, waiting. And now, the first secret had been revealed. The quiet mechanic's life was about to change forever. The storm had passed, leaving the city's streets wet and glistening under the dim glow of streetlights. Ronan's garage smelled of wet asphalt and oil, a strange mix that felt oddly comforting. Yet the memory of the glowing cats lingered in his mind, keeping him awake long into the night. He couldn't stop thinking about what the silver-eyed cat had said. A mission from a goddess. Guardians disguised as strays? Sounded impossible. But the image of those tiny, glowing figures was burned into his mind. He knew one thing for certain: he could not pretend this hadn't happened. The next morning, the alley looked normal again. The cats lounged lazily, licking their fur as if nothing extraordinary had ever occurred. Ronan rubbed his eyes. Maybe it had been a dream, he thought. But the small tuft of shimmering fur caught in the corner of his eye proved it hadn't been Dot. As he fed the cats breakfast, the silver-eyed one approached him again. It didn't speak this time. Instead, it dropped a tiny metallic object at his feet. Ronan picked it up and examined it. It was a small cube, smooth and cold, etched with strange symbols that seemed to shift when he moved it in his hand. "What's this?" he whispered. The cat's eyes seemed to shine brighter, as if urging him to pay attention. Suddenly, the cube hummed softly, and an image appeared above it like a tiny hologram. A city floated in midair, shimmering under a strange violet sky. People walked through streets lined with glowing trees, and in the center of the city stood a colossal figure. Cloaked in darkness, its face hidden, its hands glowing with strange energy. Ronan stumbled back. "This is real." "Yes," said the silver-eyed cat, now speaking again. "This is the world that needs your help. 'Tis not your city, not your people, but soon their fate will be tied to yours. The goddess of shadows has chosen you." To protect the balance between worlds, Ronan swallowed hard. Balance between worlds. I fix cars, I feed cats, I barely keep my life together. How could I possibly do anything like that? The cat padded closer and rubbed against his leg. You do not need power, only heart. The choices you make, the kindness you show, and the courage you carry, these are the forces that will guide you. The cube will show you what you must do, step by step. But beware, others are already watching. Watching. Who? The cats. Ears twitched. Enemies of the goddess. They move in shadows. They will try to mislead you, to test your resolve. You must trust neither luck nor strangers. Only your instincts and the guidance of those who are loyal. Ronan's mind raced. He was just a mechanic. He didn't have special skills, weapons, or magical abilities. But as he looked at the silver-eyed cat, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, a spark of courage he hadn't noticed in himself before that evening. As he returned to his alley, the cats had arranged themselves differently. They formed a path leading toward the outskirts of the city. Each step he took felt heavier, as if the air itself was warning him to turn back. But he didn't. He followed the path, the cube safely tucked into his jacket pocket. The path led him to an abandoned subway station. Rusted trains sat like sleeping giants, and the walls were covered in layers of grime and graffiti. Yet something pulsed beneath the station, a low, rhythmic vibration, almost like a heartbeat. The silver-eyed cat leaped onto the edge of a platform. "Here," it said. "Your first trial begins. You must retrieve the core. It is hidden in the deepest chamber. Only then will the goddess grant you the knowledge you need." Ronan peered down into the darkness. The tunnels stretched endlessly, twisting in impossible ways. Shadows moved where no light should reach. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. But he clenched his jaw and stepped forward, as he descended. The air grew colder, heavier, and the hum of the cube grew louder. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, guiding him deeper. He felt eyes watching him from every corner. Every shadow could be a threat, and yet every step forward seemed necessary. Halfway through, a whisper echoed through the tunnel. "You are not ready." The words were soft, almost a caress, but chilling enough to make him freeze. Ronan shook his head. I have to try," he said aloud. He wasn't sure if he was speaking to the voice or reassuring himself. The path twisted again, and suddenly, he found himself in a massive chamber. In the center, suspended in midair, was a glowing orb pulsing like a heart. This had to be the core. But as he reached for it, shadows surged from the walls, taking forms that looked frighteningly human. They lunged at him, whispering promises and threats. Ronan stepped back, holding the cube tightly. The cats appeared behind him, their fur shimmering brighter than ever. They hissed at the shadows, creating a protective barrier. Ronan realized then the cats weren't just observers. They were his allies, small but powerful, ready to guide him through trials he didn't yet understand. And in that moment, he understood one truth. His ordinary life was gone. The goddess had chosen him, and the first test had begun. The journey ahead was unknown. The risks were unimaginable. But Ronan, the quiet mechanic who fed stray cats, had taken the first step into a world far beyond anything he had ever imagined. Ronan's heart pounded as he stared at the glowing orb, core suspended in the center of the chamber. The shadows that had lunged at him before now twisted and writhed around the edges of the room, forming darker, more terrifying shapes. They whispered his fears, taunted him, and tried to distract him from reaching the orb. He gritted his teeth and tightened his grip on the cube in his jacket pocket. The cube vibrated, glowing faintly, as if sensing his fear and responding with energy. The cat's furs shimmered like tiny lanterns, casting light that made the shadows hesitate for a moment. "Now, Ronan," hissed the silver-eyed cat. Its voice was calm but urgent. "Trust yourself. The core responds to your heart, not your strength." Ronan took a deep breath. He realized then that his fear wasn't just danger, it was doubt. He had always believed he was just a mechanic, a man who fixed machines and fed strays. But now, he had to believe he was more than that. That the goddess had seen something in him that he had ignored all his life. Step by step, he moved forward. The shadows surged again, this time forming hands that reached for him, trying to pull him back. He ducked and dodged, rolling across the wet stone floor. One of the cats leaped at a shadow, swiping its paw. When its claws touched the darkness, the shadow vanished in a puff of smoke. Ronan's mouth went dry. These tiny creatures were more than cats. He reached the edge of the glowing orb. It hummed, and a warm light flowed toward him, like liquid sunlight. He hesitated, remembering the silver-eyed cat's words. "The core responds to your heart." Closing his eyes, he thought of the stray cats in the alley, of the nights he had spent feeding them without expecting anything in return. He thought of the tiny acts of kindness that had never mattered to anyone but him. The orb pulsed, brighter and brighter, until it surrounded him in warm, blinding light. Ronan felt a rush of energy course through his body. Images flashed in his mind: cities in ruins, people lost in darkness, creatures moving through shadows. He saw himself standing in the center of it all, guiding, protecting, making choices that could save or destroy worlds. When he opened his eyes, the shadows had retreated to the edges of the chamber. The orb floated closer, smaller, and finally settled into his hands. It felt alive, pulsing like a heartbeat that matched his own. He knew instinctively that this was more than just a glowing object. It was a key, a map, and a source of power. It's all in one. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. A shadow, unlike the others, appeared, massive and terrifying. Its eyes glowed red, and its shape constantly shifted, impossible to describe. It spoke in a voice that shook the floor. You are not ready, human. You cannot control what you do not. Understand? Ronan backed away, holding the core tightly. Mind race. How could he fight this creature? How could he protect himself and the cats? The silver-eyed cat leaped in front of him, hissing and bristling. Do not fear, Ronan. Use the core. Trust it. Ronan looked at the glowing orb and realized it wasn't just a tool, it was part of him now. With trembling hands, he extended the core toward the shadow. Light burst from it, pure and white, forming a barrier between him and the dark creature. The shadow roared, striking at the light, but each blow weakened it. Step by step, Ronan advanced. He could feel the core guiding him, showing him where to move, how to fight, and how to protect the cats. The shadows shrank under the light until, with one final pulse, they evaporated into nothingness. Silence fell over the chamber, broken only by Ronan's heavy breathing. The cats gathered around him, purring softly, their glow dimming back to a calm shimmer. The silver-eyed one jumped onto his shoulder. You did it, it said. The core recognizes your heart. You have passed the first trial. But this is only the beginning. Greater challenges await, ones that will test not just your courage, but your soul? Ronan nodded, still gripping the core. He felt exhausted, but also alive in a way he had never known. He had faced something beyond understanding and survived. And now he realized that his quiet life, the nights feeding stray cats, the hours fixing broken machines, had prepared him in a way no training ever could. The chamber began to fade around him. The walls dissolved, the floor vanished, and he found himself back in his alley. Rain dripping from the rooftops, the city as quiet as it had been before the storm. The core floated before him, calm and radiant. The cats sat around him, watching, silently, as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. Ronan took a deep breath. He understood now that his ordinary life was over. The goddess had chosen him, and the first trial had been completed. But the cube in his pocket vibrated again, showing new symbols, new instructions, new dangers. He looked at the silver-eyed cat. What now? He asked quietly. Now, the cat said, you prepare. The real journey begins tomorrow. Shadows will come again, and this time the stakes will be higher. The core has awakened, and the world needs you. Ronan nodded. He had no idea what awaited him, but one thing was certain, he would not turn back. The mechanic who fed stray cats was now a guardian of worlds, and his first taste of adventure had only just begun. The next morning the city seemed the same. Sunlight glinted off puddles, birds chirped, and people hurried past without noticing the quiet alley where Ronan stood, holding the glowing core. Yet for Ronan, nothing felt normal anymore. The world had shifted. The core hummed softly in his hands, pulsing like it had a mind of its own. The cats gathered around him, their eyes gleaming with a strange intelligence. The silver-eyed one jumped onto a nearby crate. Ronan, it said, the core has chosen you, but there are others who desire its power. You must learn quickly, or the balance will be lost. Others, who are they? Ronan asked, his voice tight. They are shadows in human form, the cat replied. They hide among your people, plotting, waiting for weakness. Your actions will ripple beyond your city. You must be ready to act and trust no one outside your allies. Before Ronan could respond, the cube in his pocket vibrated. Tiny lights danced across its surface, forming symbols that seemed to guide him. He studied it, realizing it was showing a map of the city, but not as he knew it. The streets twisted strangely, alleys appearing where none should exist. Glowing markers showing paths and points of interest. Ronan glanced at the cats. This map, is it real? More than real, said the silver-eyed one. Shows what ordinary eyes cannot see. The core reveals hidden truths. Tonight, your first mission begins. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ronan prepared himself. He grabbed a small bag with tools, the core, and a flashlight, and followed the glowing markers on the map. The cats led the way, moving silently, their glowing eyes cutting through the darkness like lanterns. The first destination was an abandoned building at the edge of the city. Windows were broken, graffiti covered the walls, and the air smelled of dust and decay. The core pulsed, pulling him forward, and the cats' tails twitched in unison, sensing danger. Inside, shadows moved unnaturally. At first, they appeared as flickers in the corner of his eyes, but then they solidified into humanoid forms, dark, wraith-like figures with glowing red eyes. They didn't attack immediately. They circled, whispering threats in voices that chilled the blood. Ronan gripped the core. He remembered the first trial and forced himself to focus. The orb's light responded to his thoughts, expanding outward in waves that pushed the shadows back. One of the cats leaped at a shadow, claws extended, and the creature dissolved into a cloud of smoke. Ronan realized that this time, the fight wouldn't be simple. He would have to think and act together with the cats, coordinating their movements like a team. Suddenly, a shadow lunged directly at him. Ronan dodged, rolling across the floor, and slammed the core into the wall. Exploded in a flash of light, and the shadow froze midair, screaming silently before vanishing. His heart pounded. Every shadow he defeated seemed to leave a mark on him. A new understanding of the core's power and the danger it could attract. The silver-eyed cat jumped onto his shoulder again. "There is a key hidden here," it said. "A fragment of the goddess's power. You must find it before the shadows regroup. It will strengthen the core and give you insight into the enemies that wait." Ronan's eyes scanned the room. The building was crumbling, and the shadows could appear from anywhere. He noticed faint glowing lines along the floor and walls, an outline of symbols forming a path. Following it, he navigated narrow hallways, ducking under beams and stepping over rubble. Every step felt tense, like the building itself was alive and testing him. Finally, he reached a hidden chamber, sealed by a heavy metal door. The core pulsed in his hand, reacting to the door's surface. Symbols etched into the metal glowed, revealing a pattern that matched the core's pulse. With careful movements, Ronan pressed the core against the symbols, and the door slowly creaked open. Inside, a small pedestal held a crystal fragment, glowing faintly with violet light. As he reached for it, the shadows returned, not a dozen, but hundreds, filling the chamber in a wave of darkness. Ronan froze, heart racing, unsure if he could survive this. "Trust the core," whispered the silver-eyed cat, "and trust yourself." Taking a deep breath, Ronan held the core high. Light shot from it, forming a shield that expanded outward, pushing the shadows back. The cats leaped into action, their glowing forms striking precise blows. Together, man and cats formed a perfect storm of light and courage. Step by step, they fought their way to the pedestal. Ronan grabbed the crystal fragment. The core absorbed its energy, glowing brighter than ever. Instantly, he felt new knowledge flooding his mind, visions of the goddess, of the worlds in peril, and of the shadow's hidden layers. He understood for the first time the scale of what he was up against. The shadows recoiled and vanished, leaving the chamber empty. Ronan sank to the floor, breathing heavily. The cats gathered around him, purring. Softly, their glow fading to a calm shimmer. He had survived the mission, but he knew the real challenges were only beginning. The silver-eyed cat leaped onto the pedestal, eyes shining. "You have done well, Ronan, but the shadows will not rest. Each victory draws them closer. You must prepare for what comes next. Stronger enemies, impossible choices, and the true test of your heart." Ronan looked at the core, now glowing steadily in his hands. He understood one truth. His life as a quiet mechanic, feeding stray cats, was over. He was now a guardian, chosen by the goddess herself. And the world, hidden behind shadows and secrets, was waiting for him to act. The city's streets were quiet again, but the calm was deceptive. Ronan walked through the alley, the glowing core secured in his jacket, the crystal fragment now fused into its surface. The cats followed him silently, their eyes alert, tails flicking in rhythm like warning signals. The victory in the abandoned building had given him confidence, but it had also made him realize the danger was far from over. "Ronan," said the silver-eyed cat, leaping onto a nearby crate. "The shadows are aware now. They know you hold. The core's fragment, it will send stronger forces, ones designed to test more than your strength. Tonight, your next trial begins." Ronan nodded, gripping the core tighter. His heart raced. Every mission had become more dangerous than the last. He had survived waves of shadows, retrieved the fragment, and strengthened the core, but each step forward revealed how little he truly understood the enemy. The map on the cube vibrated, again projecting a new path that led deep into the industrial sector of the city. Factories long abandoned, chimneys crumbling, pipes twisted like skeletal arms. This place seemed forgotten by time. Yet according to the glowing map, this was where the next trial awaited. As he approached, he felt the first stirrings of unease. Shadows moved along the broken walls, darting in and out of sight. The air was thick, heavy with a strange energy that made his skin tingle. He glanced at the cats. Their fur shimmered brighter than ever, as if warning him of imminent danger. Inside, the largest factory, the core's light pulsed rapidly. Ronan's footsteps echoed across the rusted metal floors. Suddenly, the shadows attacked not from the corners, but from above. Dark forms swung from beams, silent and precise. One shadow dropped toward him, but a cat leaped in front, glowing, bright and striking it down midair. Ronan ducked and rolled, barely avoiding another strike. The shadows weren't mindless this time. They coordinated, cutting off escape routes and forcing him toward the center of the factory. The core pulsed in his hand, guiding him, revealing weak points in the darkness. He realized the shadows were learning, adapting to his movements. Each fight required more strategy, more focus. Then he saw it. A massive shadow, taller than any. He had faced its form shifting constantly like liquid darkness. Its glowing red eyes fixed on him, and a low growl vibrated through the building. The smaller shadows disappeared, leaving only the giant figure. Ronan's chest tightened. This was no ordinary enemy. "You were brave, human," it hissed, its voice echoing like thunder. "But courage alone will not save you. You cannot control what is beyond your world." Ronan held the core up. Light poured from it, filling the room with energy. The shadow lunged, but the orb created a barrier, forcing it back. He could feel the power of the fragment strengthening him, linking his will to the core. The silver-eyed cat circled him. "Focus. The core responds to your mind and heart. Visualize what you protect, not what you fear." Closing his eyes, Ronan imagined the alley, the stray cats, the quiet nights he had once cherished. He imagined the lives that depended on him, the invisible threads of kindness and courage that had carried him this far. Light burst from the core, forming a shining spear that struck the giant shadow, splitting it into smaller fragments that dissolved into nothingness. Ronan fell to his knees, exhausted. His chest heaved, sweat dripping from his brow, but the core glowed steadily, calm now. The cats gathered around him, purring, their glow soft and reassuring. "You did well," the silver-eyed cat said. "But this is only a fraction of what awaits. The Shadows leaders have noticed your progress. They will send agents to infiltrate your world. You must learn to act before they strike, and you must discover allies among humans as well. Not all are enemies, but few can be trusted." Ronan's mind raced. He had been a simple mechanic feeding stray cats every night. Now he was part of a war between light and shadow, between worlds, with powers he could barely comprehend. Core in his hands pulsed as if affirming his responsibility. Suddenly, a faint sound reached his ears. Whisper of movement outside the factory. The cats tensed, ears flat. Ronan realized he wasn't alone. Figures in cloaks moved among the ruins, human-shaped but moving unnaturally, shadows clinging to them like living armor. The first wave of agents had arrived. "Ronan," said the silver-eyed cat, "the real test begins now. You must protect what is precious while learning the ways of your enemies. Every choice will matter. One mistake could cost more than you can imagine." Ronan stood, gripping the core with both hands. His fear was still there, but it was joined by determination. The quiet mechanic who fed stray cats every night was gone. In his place stood a guardian, a fighter and a protector. The shadows would come, and he would meet them. The factory doors creaked open, and the first agent stepped inside, moving silently but with deadly intent. Ronan tightened his grip on the core. The alley, the cats, the life he had once known, all of it was behind him. Ahead lay a battle that would test every ounce of courage and heart he possessed. And in that moment, Ronan understood. This was only the beginning. The world of shadows, the goddess's mission. And the destiny of countless lives now rested on him, and he would not fail. The night was colder than usual, the wind slicing through the empty streets like blades. Ronan moved cautiously, the core glowing faintly in his hands. The cats flanked him, their eyes reflecting light like twin lanterns. They were no longer just companions. They were scouts, guides, and guardians. Each movement precise and purposeful. The shadow agents he had glimpsed in the factory were not ordinary enemies. They could hide in plain sight, blend among humans, and strike without warning. Ronan knew that waiting passively would not protect the city or the lives he had grown to care about. Tonight, he had to act. The cube in his pocket vibrated violently, projecting the map once more. This time, it revealed hidden points in the city locations where the shadows had nested. Secret rooms where dark energy pulsed beneath concrete and steel. One point glowed brighter than the rest, which was the heart of their operations. Ronan swallowed hard. "This is it," he whispered to the cats. They meowed softly, a sound that seemed to say, "We are with you." The journey to the shadow nest was treacherous. Broken streets, abandoned vehicles, and twisted metal-formed obstacles. But the core guided him, illuminating paths that were invisible to ordinary eyes. Shadows lurked in alleys, waiting to ambush. But each time the cats led him safely past. Their movements were synchronized, as if they could communicate without words, each knowing when to strike and when to protect. Finally, he reached the building marked by the Cuba crumbling tower on the edge of the city, blackened by fire and age. Its windows were dark like hollow eyes staring at him. He hesitated for a moment, gripping the core. The cats padded forward, their glow lighting the entrance. Inside, the air was thick and heavy, charged with dark energy. Shadows moved like smoke along the walls, whispering threats in voices that sounded familiar, almost human. Ronan's pulse quickened. He knew the shadows were not just evil, they were clever, patient, and relentless. The silver-eyed cat jumped onto his shoulder. "Remember, Ronan? You cannot fight all of them at once. Observe, learn, strike strategically. The core will guide you, but your mind must lead." He nodded, stepping carefully into the tower. Every creak of metal and crack of glass made him flinch, but he pressed on. The core pulsed brighter with each step, almost like it sensed the approaching danger. Suddenly, a shadow agent appeared before him, human-shaped, but with glowing eyes and dark smoke curling around its limbs. It lunged with unnatural speed, but Ronan reacted instinctively. He raised the core, and a beam of light shot forward, striking the agent. The creature screamed, dissipating into shadows that fled into the corners of the room. More appeared, emerging. From the walls and floor, Ronan ducked and rolled, letting the core's light protect him while the cats attacked strategically. Claws glinted, teeth snapped, and shadows vanished in bursts of smoke and light. Each movement was precise, almost choreographed. He realized that this wasn't just a fight, it was a puzzle. Each enemy had a pattern, a weakness. and he had to find it while protecting the core and the cats. As he reached the central chamber of the tower, he saw it, a massive shadow, larger than any he had faced before. It pulsed with dark energy, and behind it were rows of smaller agents ready to defend their master. The core in Ronan's hands vibrated violently, reacting to the dark power. The silver-eyed cat spoke softly. "This is the leader, Ronan. Its energy is tied to the Shadow's operations. Defeat it, and their network will collapse. But be careful, its attacks are not only physical. It can invade your mind, tempt your doubts, and feed on fear." Ronan clenched his jaw. He had no time to think of fear. Every memory of feeding the stray cats, of quiet nights, of acts of kindness, filled him with courage. The core pulsed in response, and he felt a strange connection. He was not just holding power. He was part of it. The shadow lunged, and Ronan reacted instinctively, guiding the core's light in arcs that cut through the darkness. The cats joined him, striking from unexpected angles. The shadow hissed, shifting forms, creating illusions of itself to confuse him. But Ronan focused, relying on the core's guidance and his instincts. Step by step, he advanced. Every attack he dodged, every strike he made, weakened the shadow. With a final surge, the core emitted a burst of pure light, enveloping the shadow and reducing it to nothingness. Silence fell over the chamber, broken only by Ronan's heavy breathing and the soft purring of the cats. The cube projected a new image. The shadow network was collapsing. Cities previously hidden in darkness were now revealed, free from the shadow's control. Ronan realized the impact of his actions. The world was safer tonight because of him. The silver-eyed cat leaped onto his shoulder, eyes gleaming. "You have grown stronger, Ronan. But this journey is far from over. The shadows will return, and their masters are still hidden. You must prepare for the ultimate challenge, the one that will test not only your courage, but your very soul." Ronan looked at the glowing core. He felt exhaustion, but also a sense of purpose stronger than anything he had known. The mechanic who fed stray cats every night was no longer just a man fixing machines. He was a guardian, a protector chosen by a goddess, and connected to powers beyond imagination. As the first light of dawn touched the city, Ronan stepped out of the tower, cats following silently. The world looked ordinary, but he knew better now. Darkness still lingered, but he had learned to face it. And when the shadows returned, he would be ready. Ronan stood at the edge of the city, the core glowing brightly in his hands, the crystal fragment pulsing with energy like a heartbeat. The night was dark, but the stars above seemed sharper, clearer, almost as if the universe itself was watching. He had fought waves of shadows, infiltrated nests, and survived the impossible. Yet tonight felt different. He could sense it. The final challenge was coming. The cats surrounded him, forming a semicircle, their eyes shining with intelligence far beyond ordinary creatures. The silver-eyed cat stepped forward. "This is it, Ronan, the ultimate test. The goddess has summoned. You here because your choices will decide the fate of many worlds. Darkness will strike with everything it has. You must be ready to face not just enemies, but your own fears." Ronan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He had grown from a quiet mechanic into a guardian, a protector, chosen by a divine force. Yet, he couldn't deny the trembling in his hands, the pulse of adrenaline racing through him. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Shadows poured from the streets, more numerous and ferocious than anything he had seen. At the center of this swarm was the largest shadow he had ever faced, tenth form constantly shifting, dark as midnight, its red eyes burning like coals. Behind it, he sensed a presence, an unseen master controlling everything, feeding the shadow army with its will. "Remember," whispered the silver-eyed cat, "the core is not just a weapon. It responds to your heart. Focus on what you protect, not on what you fear." Ronan gritted his teeth. He pictured the stray cats waiting for him in the alley. The quiet nights he had spent feeding them, the small kindnesses that had defined his life. The core pulsed, resonating with his determination, and light began to spread outward, pushing back the advancing shadows. The giant shadow lunged. Ronan raised the core, and a beam of pure light struck it, splitting it in two. But it reformed instantly, stronger and faster. The smaller shadows attacked from all sides. But the cats moved with uncanny precision, striking and disappearing, creating openings for him to maneuver. Ronan realized then that he wasn't alone. The lessons of the past nights, the patience, the courage, the teamwork with the cats had prepared him. He could feel the core guiding him, showing where to strike, when to dodge, when to force the shadows into weakness. Every movement was deliberate, every decision critical. The giant shadow screamed, a sound that shook the streets. Its form flickered, revealing a glimpse of the true master behind it, a dark figure cloaked in shadow. Humanoid but enormous, eyes glowing with hatred and power. It raised its hand and the core flared in Ronan's grip, almost as if sensing the threat directly. "You are brave, human," the figure hissed. "But bravery alone cannot save worlds. Surrender the core or watch everything burn." Ronan shook his head. "I don't surrender. I protect." With that, he focused his mind entirely on what he loved, what he had fought for. The core glowed brighter than ever, blinding light radiating from his hands. The giant shadow roared and charged, but the light formed a protective sphere around Ronan and the cats. Energy shot outward, pushing the dark figure back, breaking its form into countless fragments. The Dark Master shrieked, trying to reform, but Ronan pressed forward. The core pulsed with every ounce of his courage, every memory of kindness and selflessness he had ever known. The fragments of the shadow shattered, dissolving into the night, leaving only silence behind. For a moment, the city held its breath. Then the core dimmed, glowing softly, calm and steady. The cats purred, brushing against Ronan's legs, their eyes warm and intelligent. The threat had passed for now. The final test was complete. The silver-eyed cat leaped onto his shoulder. "You have done what few could, Ronan. You faced fear, darkness, and despair. You did not falter. The goddess will remember this night. The world you protect are safer because of your courage." Ronan sank to his knees, exhausted, but a sense of peace washed over him. The ordinary life of a mechanic, the nights feeding stray cats, the quiet moments of kindness, they had all led to this. He had been chosen not for strength or skill, but for his heart, as dawn broke over the city. Painting the streets in gold and pink, Ronan looked at the alley where it all began. The cats, his silent companions, meowed softly and disappeared in two. The alley's guardians returning to watch over the city in secret. He smiled, knowing that even in the ordinary world, extraordinary things could happen. The core pulsed gently in his hands, a reminder of the journey he had endured, and the battles still to come. Ronan stood, feeling stronger, braver, and ready for whatever the future held. He had discovered that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act, despite a tan that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple across worlds. And so, the quiet mechanic who fed stray cats every night became a hero. A guardian chosen by a goddess, his story hidden among shadows and light, but unforgettable to those who knew the truth.